2, ready, go.
Dan Grider, January 21, 2024. Glad to have you with us tonight. It's Sunday night, and amazingly enough, I sat here last week compiling all my stuff. I didn't know about it, but last Sunday would be a very deadly Sunday with 4 general aviation fatals, all back to back on Sunday, 1 week ago today. I'll get into all those in just a second. Here's the screen picture of that. So far, that brings us to a total of 5 for the month. 4 of the 5 occurred 1 week ago today. Our deepest respects and condolences to all of those. I'm going to talk a little bit about each one of those eventually coming up. I've got a lot to cover here tonight. I've also got some interesting interviews. I'll cut to the chase and simplify those a little bit. Got a couple Zoom calls I'm going to do just a quick snippet of that I think you'll be very interested in seeing. One of them is the guy up in D.C. that was driving his car that almost got landed on, and I did a Zoom call with him and talked a little bit about that. Got a little bit of information off of him that I think you'll find very interesting. So both of those Zoom calls are coming up. A lot of people are always asking, what is DTSB? DTSB, that's Dan's Transportation Safety Board. It's kind of a joke because the NTSB, in my opinion, is a joke. I'm just one guy with a cell phone and a banjo, and I'm compiling all this stuff. I work all week long, and I try to get this information together. I throw together this video every Sunday afternoon. I also do some videos midweek that stay on the air. These videos that I do Sunday night are only on the air for about 6 days. They normally do pretty good. Here's the graphics for the last one, last Sunday night's video. Here it is on the screen. So you can see it did 99,000 views, which is fine. It did 13,800 hours watched, which is almost a million. I gained 319 subscribers. So it tells me I'm kind of on track. I have a few haters. They're getting to be very few and far between. Steadily increasing in people that want to watch and study this kind of thing. I'm completely amateur. It's completely my opinion. Take it or leave it. That's what it is. But a lot of you write in and like what I'm doing. I got an interview with a doctor. You know, a lot of times I joke around about me being a surgeon and a doctor, but I had a doctor call up and want to talk about continuing education. And I convinced him to do a Zoom call because he didn't want to, but I convinced him to do it. So I'm going to leave his picture off of here, but I'm going to show you just a little bit of that Zoom call with an actual surgeon that's a pilot. Well, here's something really exciting. It's hardly ever rare that I get to talk to a fellow surgeon. You know, I do a lot of amateur surgeries myself in my garage with my Home Depot and Lowe's equipment. They don't work out very good all the time, but I'm on the phone right now, a Zoom call with an actual doctor. He's a pilot. He works someplace in America. We're going to leave him a little bit anonymous, but he reached out about extra advanced training. So I'm going to introduce him, and we're just going to talk through this concept, AQP, for the general aviation. And I've got a fellow surgeon on the line, and I'm not going to say where he lives or what he does, but he is in the medical profession. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Dan?
Good. I appreciate you taking a minute. This is totally cool. I have a lot of respect for what you guys do in the surgical world and all that kind of stuff. You know, when guys like me fall down and break something, we have to go to guys like you to fix it. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I find that medicine is a lot like aviation. Very much. It's very parallel.
Yeah, exactly. Except for the fact that I think you in the medical world are required to do a lot of continuing education. Probably, I don't know, is it state or federal? Who drives your medical continuing education?
It's state driven. So every state has different rules, but they're pretty standardized across each state. Mine is 60 category 1 CMEs, which is credits in medicine. There's 3 categories, one being the most intense, meaning you're sitting for about an hour at least. 1 credit's 1 hour.
Right. And that's per what, per year, or how often do you have to do those 60 credits?
60 credits every 3 years. And then you have to do additional training based on your certifications and additional certifications that you have on your license. So if you hold a DEA certificate, you have to also do 8 hours in a DEA course and keep up with that as well.
Yeah, so it's a lot. It's a lot. Now, you're also a pilot of some type. You've got your own airplane, and you're most interested in staying alive in your airplane. So you reached out to me because I think you watch a lot of YouTube. Tell me about your fascination with learning some extra things that you're able to find out via social media. And let's compare what you could find out in a book versus what you could find out today on social media, specifically Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and those kind of things.
Well, just like I work a very busy schedule throughout the week. I work sometimes 5 in the morning until 7, 8 at night on some days, pretty regularly actually.
Right.
It varies, but there's very little time to find after work to educate yourself. And so I started turning to YouTube because I couldn't stay awake to read the book at night, especially when you're tired. But YouTube is a little more interactive, and I find that watching videos has been just as much scholastic value as the book, and actually in some cases even better than a book.
Tell me about your ability to take what you've learned on YouTube and try to translate it into your actual flying. Has your flying been altered in any way because of YouTube?
Oh, tremendously. It's increased my confidence a lot in IFR as well.
I guess my only remaining question for you is that since you had your private pilot's license, you got that piece of paper in your pocket, how many hours of continuing education are required of you since you got your private pilot's license? What's required of you in terms of continuing education?
Just a BFR every 2 years.
Yeah.
Basic flight review every 2 years.
And what's your opinion of that? Is that enough?
No, and I think actually I have opinions on this, and I know we don't have an unlimited amount of time, but one of my big opinions is that aviation should be treated like medicine, where we are required to do so many wings courses or FAA credits every year or 2 years. That is an honesty system, but can be audited in events.
Yeah, so it's voluntary continuing education, and I guess that's really the reason you reached out to me initially. I wanted to get more information on voluntary continuing education, and I think that's a good. I'd like for other people in the country to see you as a role model and recognize there is some voluntary continuing education that you can do in the form of reading and watching videos and all that kind of thing, and becoming better educated about what is about to happen to you in your airplane. And I can tell you what's about to happen to you in your airplane. Something's about to happen to you in your airplane, and I hope you're ready for it, because when it does, you're going to have to make a life and death decision. If you're not prepared, you're probably not going to survive. And that's all it is. I'm hoping more people will listen to your voice and recognize there is value in staying alive and becoming better prepared for what's about to happen to you.
What is important is what you do as the pilot after the failure. Your actions right now are the most important test in your life.
And brother, I appreciate it. Thank you for jumping in here, and I'm going to keep on going on this, but I look forward to further talks with you. And great to run into a fellow surgeon. Your credentials are a little bit better than mine in the surgery world. Most of my surgeries do not come out good, but I'm running a special for the month of February. Anybody listening, I'm offering 50% off on amputations, so keep that in mind.
I might have to compete and go 75%.
All right, brother. Thanks for jumping in here. Appreciate it.
Take care, Dan. Thank you.
Right, bye-bye. So the concept is continuing education for general aviation. And can we learn something off of social media and YouTube? I think that we can. We're going to jump in here and talk a little bit about Haneda, the Japanese crash here. I'm going to go on to the next slide here and show you this right now. This is a graphic. Actually, before we do that, I'm going to show you. I made a mistake last week. I showed you this graphic. I'll put it up on here. Let's talk through this. This is the years 2019 through 2028. It's a 10-year project for me. And here's the total number of accidents. And this is the way this graph looks. My goal, that F/MO, that's fatals per month. The goal is 18, 17, and 16, and that's what we actually did. So 2023 is closed out. We actually closed out 2023 at 14.583 fatals per month, which is really good. Now, if you take a look at that F/100K, the first three of those numbers are in black. Those are actual government solid numbers. That's fatals per 100,000 flight hours flown. Those are documented. We don't have 2022 and 2023 data because they haven't told us how much we flew in 2022 and 2023. Those are estimates. But if you look here, down in 2027, I made a mistake. and I put 857. That's a typo, so I'm going to fix that right now. It should be 120. Check that out. With a stroke of a pen here, I can make that correct. A lot of you caught that and saw it and had a little fun with that. No, the correct goal for fatals is going to be 120 in the year 2027. I think we're making it. I think all of us together, among all the YouTube channels, social media, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube channels, all that kind of thing, I want to give a special shout out to a special YouTube channel that did a nice video on this pilot, Tennessee, the fly girl from Tennessee. And I'm going to put his YouTube page on here, right here. And I want you to go and watch this video that he did on the crash of Jenny up there. He did a really nice job. He's a very small channel and he's just getting started, but his video got 400-some-thousand views. Probably one of the better explanations of this that I've ever seen. He actually used her footage and did that. Check this out.
See a lick. I can watch my airspeed. Turn that heat down, will you?
How do you turn it down?
So after takeoff, Jenny began a right turn towards the east, but she's turned too far. Here they are heading into the sun, and you can see they are flying parallel to the runway they took off from out the aircraft's right side window. They're now headed southwest.
So let's get back to the Japan thing that I started down just a second ago. The Japanese have already come up with their conclusion. They've written their stuff. They've already come out with a rule on how they're going to change their phraseology. They actually mentioned the Tenerife crash and referenced it in their report and their recommendations and their new laws concerning what you can and can't say concerning how this whole thing happened. The guy that taxied out his airplane and sat out on the runway with engines running on the center line for almost a minute, he actually thought that he was doing the right thing. He was led to believe. Believe it or not, yes, he never got told clear for takeoff, but it had to have happened somehow. And here's where the Japanese government stepped in and said, obviously, this is a mistake. Obviously, some changes have to occur here. And they're very swift to investigate, figure it out, and make changes instantly. So good on Japan. I want to take a look at NTSB now. Here's a couple things I'm going to show you just right off the NTSB webpage here that they show you. They say since the start of the NTSB, we have issued more than 15,730 safety recommendations. Well, that's not true. The actual number is 1,293, and that's since 1967. So that's actually a complete lie that's on their website. And here's where I get that from. If you go to the Carol and do a search just like I did here, notice here that number here is 1,293. That's how many safety recommendations that they've done. Now, the whole concept of runway incursions here is very important, and I also dumped in here the runway incursion data so NTSB can show you. You're going to find this fascinating. Let's take a look at this graphic. This is right off the NTSB website. The total number of, since 1988, the total number of FAR 121, that's air carrier investigations so far, has been 1,831. That's how many incidents have occurred. Now, out of that, I dumped in one more parameter right here. And here it is. I added runway incursions. How many runway incursions have they investigated? Well, the answer is 24 right there. And I got your little red box around. Now, the big question, out of 1,831 investigations, 24 runway incursions, how many safety recommendations has the NTSB come out with? Let me hear your guess in the comments in the chat, especially the chat room right now. If you're in the chat room, welcome, and thanks a lot for jumping in here. Say hi and let me know where you're checking in from. Give me your guess. How many? 1,831 airliner investigations. 24 of those have been runway incursion investigations. How many recommendations has the NTSB made so far? Well, I'll put it on the screen here. The answer is 0. I mean, we're talking a big, fat 0. So, in light of runway incursions in America, I'm not much of a fan of this new DEI. I call it DIE, this diversity initiative by the FAA, NTSB, and government operations to put unqualified people in our towers, our radar rooms, in our pilot, in our cockpits, flying our airplanes. To fill quotas just because you have to fill a quota is opposite of what we need to be doing here. It's okay to hire somebody. It doesn't really matter what race or nationality they are or what their persuasion is, but they have to be qualified. They have to be experienced and qualified, and that's the actual problem here. I think this guy said it best here. He's talking about FAA being asleep at the wheel.
You know, the FAA has been absolutely asleep at the wheel. You know, they've had a revolving leadership there, unfortunately.
FAA is asleep at the wheel, and this new diversity inclusion thing, I'm absolutely appalled, and so many others are as well here. I've got my own DTSB recommendations. I'm going to put them on the screen here for you. This has to do with ATC communications and their hiring. This is our next Tenerife in America is going to happen on U.S. soil. It's definitely going to involve 2 U.S. carriers and a lot of lives lost. I'm going to give you my recommendations. If I was running the show, I would put this in place immediately. No personal electronic devices on the job. This is for ATC now. If you're an air traffic controller of any kind, professional attire required, you got to be on time. No facility tours or visitors. Knock off all those facility tours and visitors and people crawling around and in your stuff while you're trying to control airplanes. These tours and visits to ATC facilities going on right now where the general public is in there is crazy. It's a huge distraction. Let's go on. No distractions. Work breaks on time. You got to have breaks. No single runway lineup and wait. If you only have one runway, you can't do a line up and wait. Hold short instructions mandatory. Line up and wait only with direct supervision. If you're going to do a line up and wait, which tells an airplane to go out there and sit before they get a takeoff clearance, you got to have supervision, somebody keeping an extra set of eyes on that to make it happen. That is my DTSB recommendations. They won't implement that. They're going to wait until 2 airplanes collide head on and there's bodies everywhere. Then it's going to take them 3 years to figure out what they should have done. I'm telling you right now, I would put this into place immediately. You're about to have this thing here, and it's definitely going to happen. Let's go on. Now, speaking of our lack of timely information, lack of transparency, I'm going to jump into this thing on the NTSB and specifically the Alaska 737 thing. Here is the report from the NTSB. This is right off their webpage here. I'm going to show it to you. This is the form, and you can look this up yourself. So far today, there's no public document, no report, no published date, and no safety recommendation. It's been 20 days since this thing happened. They're supposed to have a preliminary out within 7 to 10 days, and we have a real problem with this. I want to go over the operation of this door. There is nothing wrong with the design of this door. This airplane is designed just fine. All these airplanes are going to return to service. There's nothing wrong with the design. Boeing did not fail in the design of this airplane. Their engineering was good. Their design was good. All they did was didn't put the bolts in. Somebody didn't put these 4 bolts in. There's 12 of these retaining pins around the perimeter, plus there's 4 bolts. Now, what the bolts do is keep the door from riding up. When the door rides up, these things become unmated from each other, and then the door can leave. I think this is all this is. This is a question of the 4 bolts. This is not a design problem. It is not a bad design. Let's listen to the NTSB tell you about the 4 bolts.
It translates inboard and then down, so the stops then engage. At that point, 4 stop bolts are installed in the mechanism to prevent that plug from translating upward, disengaging those stops. At that point, 4 stop bolts are installed in the mechanism to prevent that plug from translating upward. 4 stop bolts are installed. 4 stop bolts. 4 stop bolts. 4 stop bolts.
Now here's the really amazing thing here. Ms. Hamidi, she is convinced that this airplane had an explosive decompression and that blew the door out. It's which came first, the chicken or the egg? Did the explosive decompression blow the door out, or did the door blowing out cause an explosive decompression? She thinks that an explosive decompression blew the door out. Listen to this.
We can't make we don't know if they were there or if, again, they came out during the violent explosive decompression event.
It's not true. An explosive decompression did not cause the door to blow out.
We can't make we don't know if they were there or if, again, they came out during the violent explosive decompression event.
Not only that, she's gone on and she she did a press release here this week and a conference here. She's talking about non-destructive testing. There's a thing called NDT, non-destructive testing. She does not even know the difference between destructive testing and non-destructive testing. She's gone on record and saying that they're going to do destructive testing. You don't do destructive testing on this. You could do NDT testing on it, but destructive testing has to do with the design of it to figure out when they originally built this thing. There is nothing wrong with this door or its design. They simply didn't put the bolts in. What she's talking about is something she overheard. It's called non-destructive testing. Here's the thing that I found on the web where she specifically mentions that she wants to do destructive testing. It's crazy. So I guess you saw the footage of the Cessna Caravan. They did a great job. This is not a loss of thrust on takeoff. This engine didn't quit. This engine rolled back. It's a Caravan. It's a PT6. Yes, the propeller ended up feathered because that's what PT6s do. After you shut them down, they go to feather. This airplane still had power. It rolled back. This crew landed the airplane with some power still available. They did not shut down. They did not feather in flight. They landed the airplane. And there was a kid driving his car. Fortunately, schools are closed for the snowstorm, and there was very few people out on the road. He was driving his car. Here's a quick interview that I found online with Jesse.
Much to the surprise of witness Jesse LaBelle.
First thought is, this is insane. What's going on? What the heck? What do I do? So it landed, went underneath the traffic light, got squirrely over here and hit the guardrail.
LaBelle says he jumped out of his vehicle, ran to the plane, and helped passengers out.
So I took it upon myself to reach out to Jesse, great kid, and he was able to jump on a Zoom call. I'm going to play that for you next. Jesse was driving his car, but he's going to tell you in his own words, this engine was running.
Let's hear from the young man who literally witnessed this amazing landing, the plane flying only feet over his car.
On the phone today, Zoom call with Jesse LaBelle. How are you, Jesse?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I appreciate you taking just a minute. You're the guy that we saw in the news up there in Loudon Parkway with the Caravan that landed. You were out getting lunch. Tell me what happened.
Yeah, I was just, going to get lunch like you said, and driving down the road, hear a loud noise, thinking my car blew up or something. Next thing you know, I'm looking up and a plane's right there above me, about 20 feet. And it landed 35 feet in front of me, with the engines running and all that. It went underneath the traffic light, and then lost control after the traffic light and hit the guardrail. I'm assuming if he didn't lose control at the end down there, he probably would have been, the plane would have been perfectly fine. But yeah, he hit the guardrail at the end and, damaged the prop.
Yeah. So when they came over the top of you, you were probably the only car out there, but they saw you, flew right over the top. And then, like a good Samaritan that you are, you went right to the airplane and started helping people. And you got there. You were like the first one there.
Yeah. So I immediately ran out to the plane to see if everybody was okay. Everybody was, they're just in shock. They're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like the news article came, they said that it was a 15-year-old. He was the youngest, and he immediately started recording what was going on, which I thought was funny. And then all the pilots were okay too, and they were just making their emergency calls to their bosses and whatnot. But everybody was okay. Just the airplane was a little hurt.
Yeah, well, it's a great feel-good story. You and I have talked a little bit. I know you're like interested in aviation, stuff like that, which is totally cool. The concept of what that crew did there, they get an A+. They either had an engine failure or they had an engine reduction. I call it a LOTOT or a ROTOT. It's either a reduction of thrust, but that thing came over the top of you and it was pretty loud, right?
Yeah. So you know how a typical single engine airplane is pretty loud when it's flying up, 2,000, 3,000 feet,
right?
When they're doing their regular patterns. And I was thinking that was extremely loud. It was way too close to be a normal scenario. So when I looked up, it's right there blaring.
Right. So the prop was spinning and the engine was making engine noises of some kind. So the engine was still kind of running.
Yeah, I believe it was running. The prop, once it was still spinning the whole time.
Yeah.
It stopped once it hit the guardrail, and it damaged it was hitting the guardrail off repeatedly, and then it shut off after that. I don't know if the pilot shut it off or if it shut off from repeated abuse.
Yeah. Well, you're a fine American. I appreciate you sacrifice. You went right to the scene and started helping people. The crew, you did a great job. The crew did a great job. Whether they had an engine loss or an engine reduction, they took the opportunity and landed it on the road, stepped out. Everybody's good. And I think it's a great example to highlight that the things they did not try to turn around. There's a thing called an impossible turn, and from 800 feet in the air, it would have been tempting. The runway was right directly behind them. It would have been tempting to turn left and go to the runway, but instead, I think, and I don't know because I have not talked to anybody associated with this, I think they made a conscious decision to look down and see you and your little car was the only one out there. They could clearly go over the top of you. They had that 3-lane Loudon Parkway right there in front of them, and they used it.
Yeah, they definitely looked for their options and their escape route for sure. There was, that was probably their best option. The other roads, I mean, they could have, it was a little further away, but they probably wouldn't have made it there. But the other road that's, right in front of the runway that there is a 2-lane road.
Right.
And then, adjacent to that is the 3-lane road. They narrowly missed, power lines and trees. So they did an amazing job for sure. Definitely put their training to use.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you taking just a minute, Jesse. I know you're 24 years old and you're out there working hard and doing all your stuff, but we appreciate you. And it's a great feel-good story for everybody. And we just all want to say thanks for sacrificing yourself and speeding directly to there and jumping out and trying to help. I think that's what anybody should do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was never happened to me before, and I was, that was my first instinct, go check on everybody. Not like I could have done anything, but thought I'd go try to lend a hand.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good luck in your future, and thanks for allowing me to reach out to you and say hi. I think it's a great story, and I think people will enjoy seeing you on here and talking about it. I've played a little bit of a clip of you that I got from the news of you standing out there alongside the roadway, so they already know exactly who you are, and you're the guy that got flown over.
Right? Yeah, narrowly missed by a plane. It was awesome, but thanks for having me here. It was nice speaking with you. And maybe this is my start of my aviation career. Who knows?
A lot of resources up there in your area if you want to get into flying. I know you're interested in it. A lot of people be thrilled to help you, give you advice, and show you and give you some free airplane rides and get you introduced to it. If you're interested in that, there's a lot of good connections right there in your backyard.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's several private airports right around me, and lots of opportunity for sure.
Yes, sir. Thank you again, Jesse. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Great job all the way around, the flight crew. I'm going to play a little bit of the tape here for you. She says, we're alive, we're on the ground, and we're alive. Here's that.
Affirmative, all passengers and pilots are alive and well, no injuries.
Runway 246, that's great news. Thanks for sharing. How many passengers are on board?
We have 5 passengers, and we had 1,100 pounds of fuel. No fire, no problem.
5 passengers, 1,100 pounds of fuel, and how many crew?
2 crew.
7 total, 1,100 pounds of fuel. Thank you.
The crew fought off the tendency and the urge to turn left and go back to the airport. They saw the highway. They turned left. They landed. Jesse's car was the only thing that they had to dodge. He was the only one in front of them, and they went right over the top of Jesse. Everything's good, and this is a ROTOT, not a LOTOT. This is a reduction of thrust. Something happened, and they lost power, lost RPM, lost horsepower. They lost something. They were not able to sustain flight because of their rollback. It'll be a little while before we know technically what they lost, but this engine did not fail. It simply reduced power, and they landed with some throttle available. I'm not sure how much. That's a guess on my part, but I think they did a great job. They put it on the parkway, got it shut down, opened the door, and stepped out. That's all I ask. Don't try to go back to the airport. Let's take a look at the accidents for January. We've only got 5 so far. 4 of them occurred a week ago today. Here's number 1 on the list. This is November 712 Delta Golf. That's the Highlander. This is a failed, rejected takeoff. I got the report on this. Jared Hansen, age 45, and his wife were taking off. They had flown from Cortez up to their house. The runway, unimproved strip where they had at their house was very rough, not very good. It was snow-covered and muddy, and they were heavy coming out of there. They failed to get airborne. They went off the end. They did not have flying speed. They did not meet RTO parameters for where they were at. That airplane could not come out of there. It went off the end. They were trapped inside, and it burned. They never got it airborne. The wreckage was found just off the departure end of their makeshift runway. This is a failed, rejected takeoff. Now, the next set of four here, the starting early in the morning out in Eloy, Arizona. This is a balloon. I'm still not understanding how this whole thing works, where you can sell tickets for a balloon ride and put 15 or 20 people on this balloon.
There were initially 13 people in the hot air balloon, 1 pilot, 4 passengers, and 8 skydivers. Kinsey was one of the 8 skydivers, all of whom survived. The pilot and 3 of the 4 passengers did not survive. Chayton's dad says his son sent his last text to Kinsey.
He texted her on the way down saying, "Goodbye, this ain't going to be good, I love you," and signed off.
Chayton, along with the pilot, 37-year-old Cornelius Vanderwalt, and passengers Atayan Kilikate from California and Caitlin Bartram from Indiana, did not survive. Once Kinsey landed, she read Chayton's text and immediately called him.
Somebody else answered his phone and said, "This is not good, you need to be here now." So she shedded her parachute harness and she ran 2 miles to get to him, and officials wouldn't let her near him.
That's when Chayton's parents were made aware of the crash.
I usually can't talk about him too much without breaking down.
They still will not let us go see him. So I'm waiting to go see my son.
These skydivers went on this balloon with the people who were paying tickets to go on the balloon ride and watch the jumpers jump. It's not a 135 operation, but they're charging money for a ride. Really, you need an LOA for that. You need, I don't know, but we already had one of these fatal balloon accidents in Texas in 2016. Here's the whole thing on the NTSB. I'm going to put this report up on the screen for you here. This is the NTSB report from the fatal accident in 2016 where a bunch of people died in a similar balloon accident in Texas. And I want you to see here, this report from 2016, it ended up with, and I'm going to put this at the bottom here, because of FAA's inaction on safety recommendation A1411 and 12, and the new recommendation discussed for a more risk-based approach to identifying balloon operators for oversight, safety recommendation A1411 and 12 are reclassified, closed, unacceptable, action superseded. What that means is that they did all this work, turned in the recommendation to the FAA completely ignored them. NTSB doesn't have any power to enforce anything. All they could do is write this recommendation. FAA looked at it and said, no, thank you, have a nice day, and that's all it was. Now, a few years later, we have another balloon accident. Ironically, NTSB's recommendation had to do with the medical certification of the pilot and more stringent. The accident didn't have anything to do with his medical condition or anything like that. That accident in Texas had nothing to do with anything except that they ascended up through the clouds on a day they should not have been flying. They elected to make a low-vis descent back down through the clouds. They didn't know it, but when they came through the clouds, they came through the clouds right into power lines. Shouldn't have ever been up there. Had nothing to do with drugs, medical certification, or classification of the pilot. NTSB wasted 65 pages of paper, 3 years, and $1 million to make a recommendation that the FAA totally disregarded. Then right after that, a week ago today, was the Barron crash. Had 3 people on board. This is we're not going to know exactly for sure, probably ever. This is slow flight, stall spin, maybe VMC demo, maybe a drag demo. There's these things in the FAA that call demos. A drag demo and a VMC demo are 2 things that you have to do to get your multi-engine certification. They're not proficiency things. They're things that you have to demonstrate. They're educational things. The VMC demo has caused a lot of accidents. We had one out west in Oregon a few months ago. We had one in Alabama. Each one of them practicing for the illustrious VMC demo, got the airplane out of control, entered a flat spin, and couldn't get it out of it before impact. It's one of those things where training is causing more fatals than the actual thing itself. They need to be informed and knowledgeable about VMC, what the speed is, what the limitations of how much rudder you have, and how much adverse yaw you have. You need to know about those things. Asking a low-time student to go out and demonstrate that and set it up and pull the nose up and go full power on one side and the other side windmilling, it's just not a good idea. The Army And military has totally quit doing in-airplane VMC demos for this very reason. They lost so many guys doing VMC demos, they totally cut it out. Now the only way the military ever does a VMC demo is always in the sim. They are no longer allowed to do any VMC or drag demos in real aircraft, and that's what happened. Let's take a look at the next one here. This is November 252 Delta Lima. That's the Cessna 310 in Texas. Dr. Heath Smith, 40 years old, with his 2 children on board, flying in ice. He got into severe ice and iced this 310 up. Remember my thing here? Pick one: night, IMC, terrain, and ice. The doctor picked 2. He picked IMC and ice, and the airplane would not carry it. Killed 3. Ironically, his wife and other child down there on the border begged him not to go, begged him to stay there. The weather was not good. The icing, the forecast freezing level was well below his planned cruise altitude of 7,000 feet. They begged him not to go, and he did it anyway. He got in the ice, and that airframe could not carry the ice. All 3 are dead. Poor decision making. There's nothing wrong with the airplane. There's nothing wrong with anything else. He just iced it up like a popsicle, and the thing wouldn't fly, and down it came. Everybody's dead. I'm really sorry, especially those 2 innocent little kids lost in that because of Dad's decision. That family will live with that for the rest of their lives. They will be truly affected for the rest of their lives because of his decision. Don't you go out there and make stupid decisions like that. That was a completely stupid decision to do that. Put that airplane in the clouds, in the ice, in the wintertime in Texas to get home for a Dallas Cowboys football game? I don't think so. Let's take a look at the last one here. This is the Cozy out there, 656 Tango Echo. I put Venice on here. It's the Venice scenario. The guy's name was Lockie Ferrier. Not exactly sure how old he was, but they all flew into this little airport, went and had dinner. They came back out after dark. When they came back out, they got a problem. They got to get home. They're a long ways away from home. They don't want to Uber. They're going to get the airplane. It was about 300 broken, 300 overcast, visibility 1/2 to 1 in light rain and mist. The marine fog layer, low level, had moved in, and they tried to go. Loki took off out over the water and promptly lost track of horizon, and this is a transition from visual. He took off visual with the bright runway lights guiding him and giving him reference. As soon as he got in the air over the water, he had no idea, and he was not prepared to transition to instruments, and he drove it right straight into the water. This happens all the time. This is unintentional IMC after takeoff. 4 people died on that one, so all in all, on this Sunday, 1 week ago today, we had 4 separate plane crashes, all of them fatal, ironically, all on one day. I want to say a sincere thanks to everyone for your support and watching and paying attention to this. I think we're doing a lot better on the general aviation fatals. You guys that bought hats, you knuckleheads that bought hats, I appreciate you sending me a picture of your hat. That's really cool. I'm going to try to play more of those more often. I don't sell hats. I'll have hats available for sale again, maybe next Christmas again. I'm totally out of hats. If you ordered a hat or paid for one and you didn't get one, please send me an email. I think I'm about caught up. I do have a few more that I got to get out here this week. Roger, the hat maker in Tulsa, if you'd like to buy hats for your own project or your own school or your own club or your own organization, send an email or call Roger. He's the guy that builds these hats, and I appreciate him very much. A great friend and pilot out there in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I appreciate your support. These videos take me a tremendous amount of time all week long to gather information, pictures, data, talk to people, and set this whole thing up. I always kill most of Sunday shooting this thing and editing it, rendering it, getting it uploaded to YouTube, and getting it up on time for 9:30 p.m. on Sunday night. Been doing it about a year and 2 months. We've got the DTSB, Dad's Transportation Safety Board, for the larger donors that want a tax credit and being able to give larger amounts of money towards DTSB. All that's coming. We'll have that channel set up. I don't have it set up where you can actually transmit or transfer any funds to that yet, but we're very, very close to that. In the meantime, if you want to give me $1 or $2 towards my efforts here, that's a totally different thing. It's not tax deductible. That's a tip, $1 or $2. And here's the way that you can do that. And I very much appreciate a lot of you have given me $1 and $2, and a lot of you have insulted me with your tip, and I appreciate that. Some of you are fairly clever on what you write on those notes when you give me $1 or $2, and that's totally hilarious. Here's the methods you can do that: Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, Zelle. I got to get out of here. I'm going to get this video up and on the air, and I appreciate you hanging with us here in the live chat room here tonight. Let's be safe out there. Let's keep this accident trend going in a good direction for 2024. We got to have this thing going on the way down. This thing has got to stay trending down. Be safe out there. Fly with enough fuel. Get some AQP training. Get some AQP advanced. Think about this stuff. Don't make these stupid decisions. Don't go do that stuff, because you'll end up on my YouTube channel. For my tiny little itty-bitty fledgling YouTube channel, Dan Grider, probable cause. You know the one thing I like about you? You always stop to think. I just wish you'd start back up again.
What's brown and sticky?
I don't know.
Stick.
I was going to wear my camouflage shirt today, but I couldn't find it.
What kind of a sound does a witch's car make?
I don't know.
Broom, broom.
Doesn't expecting the unexpected actually mean that you're expecting it?
Did you hear about that kidnapping at school?
No.
It's fine. He will go.
Today a man knocked at my door and he asked for a donation to the community swimming pool. I gave him a glass of water.
My friends told me to stop singing Wonderwall.
Why?
I said maybe.
Did you ever wonder why the game Monopoly is only made by one company? I changed my password on my computer to incorrect. Now when I can't remember what my password is, it tells me my password is incorrect.
What's brown and sticky?
I don't know.
A stick.
It's so bad. All right, do it again.
It's pretty good, huh?
It's pretty good.